Now, I want to start now a part of the video that I'm very excited to work with. This is the introduction to Hantai Sankaku, the opposite-sided triangle. This is essentially a triangle locked what appears to be the wrong way. This is a big part of my approach to teaching the triangle. It's been famously used by my students. We use it all the time in the gym, and probably the most famous application of it was when Gordon Ryan submitted Harleq Gracie with this move. It's a confusing triangle to many people because it appears to be locked in the wrong direction. But done properly with the right body mechanics, this is an enormously effective stranglehold which you can add to your triangle game and get tremendous results. First off, let's just look at what is Hantai Sankaku. What does it even look like? Okay, Jiu-Jitsu 101, we all get taught the front triangle, Omote Sankaku, okay? Where our legs come out and we lock up like so, the one you're all familiar with. Now, Hantai Sankaku would be a situation where my legs lock in what appears to be the wrong way, okay? A wrong-sided triangle. Now, you might be asking, how the hell are you going to strangle someone with this? It looks like the alignment's all wrong. It doesn't even look like it would work. You could see maybe you get an arm lock from here, a kimura or something, but how are you going to strangle someone? Well, the problem here is alignment. I've done a poor job of aligning my body so my training partner feels no threat of strangulation. But if we learn to align our bodies and we use that same opposite-sided lock, you can get an enormously tight strangulation. I'm just going to show you just the sheer body position first to get an idea of what we're trying to accomplish. And then we're going to start to look at practical applications of the move where we learn to combine it with the front triangle based upon our opponent's elbow position. And that's going to be a big part of what we do. Okay. So first, let's look at a manner in which we can use this practically in combat. I'm going to start off with a classic trap triangle. Okay, I don't have a figure 4 yet. I've just got the trap around my opponent's head and one arm, and we're ready to start the ball rolling. Okay. From here, a very common form of defense for my opponent is to put his hand behind my hip. It's a smart defense because it brings his shoulder forward into the Sankaku. And as we know from earlier, once my opponent's shoulder gets included in the Sankaku, it's hard for me to close my figure 4 properly and strangle the guy. It's a sound defense on his part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go forward, I'm going to get a hold of my training partner's head, and then my hand is going to go deep inside my training partner's legs. I'm going to use my hand to pull my body to a 90-degree angle so that I'm 90 degrees across my opponent. Now, here's a word to the wise. Because your arm is in here, you're going to be tempted to try to pull yourself further with your arm. Don't. Your arm gets you to 90 degrees and it gets you no further. What ultimately lines me up with my opponent, so my 2 feet point forward, is not my right hand, it's my left leg. So when I hold in here, I use my left leg like a pendulum so that my right knee goes under my training partner's elbow. So I move out like so, like I wanted to touch my left foot to the floor. Now you can see my right knee has gone underneath my opponent's rib cage. That's what I'm looking for. Now from here, I bring my knee behind my opponent's head as a wedge. So when my training partner tries to pull out, it's very, very difficult. I physically grab my own shin. And from this position, I pull my legs into the figure of 4 so that my lock is directly above his head. When Mateus tries to posture out and pull away, it's almost impossible. And from here, the stranglehold is impressively strong. Once again, from a situation where we start with a basic trap triangle, my opponent takes his elbow around behind the hip to bring his shoulder into my triangle and frustrate my strangle. No problem. We go into counter, we catch the head, we catch the leg. The arm pulls me around to 90 degrees, but what ultimately gets me there is the pendulum effect of my leg, like I wanted to touch the floor. Then from here, I bring my leg in behind as a blocker, a wedge behind his head. My foot and my knee are close together. So when Mateus goes to yank out of here, it's shockingly difficult. And it's easy for us now to lock the full figure of 4. Now, when I squeeze with my legs, we get an enormously tight strangulation. This is the basic mechanic behind the move. The key element is the idea of your legs being nice and relaxed as you pull yourself around. Your right arm initiates the turn, but it does not complete the turn. The right arm pulls you to 90 degrees, but what completes the turn is the pendulum effect of your left, in this case, left leg. Other side, obviously the right leg. Initiate the turn with the arm, finish it with the leg. Ultimately, you have to end up in a crazy looking north-south position to your opponent. That's what's going to determine your success or failure. Can you get north-south? The arm will get you halfway there, but the leg will complete the journey. Let's go back into the move now and show the crucial role of the vertical leg. Okay, we have a training partner in place. Trap triangle, he goes to hide the leg. Watch this leg here. Ultimately, my shin must be pointing, my foot rather, and shin must be pointing up to the ceiling. If my foot points in this direction, you will never strangle anybody here. You can do kimuras, you can do other good things, but you can't get an effective strangle. Okay? To effectively strangle someone, we need to go all the way around to a north-south position so that my foot is pointing up at the ceiling. My hand controls his head, so if Patas goes to posture up and away from me, it's very, very difficult. From here, you can see that my knee has gone underneath his arm, like so. If you can see my knee, this is not going to be an effective strangle. So our whole thing is to push this knee inwards and under. The transition of my knee from here to here is the key. Notice how I go from perpendicular to almost north-south. What keeps him in place is my control of the head. Go to posture up, Patas. And it's that which gets me around the corner. Now my leg comes in as that wedge. Now I get a hold of my own shin. When he goes to yank out, so difficult. And when we lock, the strangulation power is very impressive. You can see what's involved is this idea of inverting my knee and bringing the knee underneath my training partner's rib cage. This is such an interesting strangle because it completely changes your whole perception of which is the strangle leg and which is the support leg. Think about it. For a basic front triangle, it's very clear which is the strangle leg and which is the support leg. The strangle leg is the one here, the right leg, that goes onto my training partner's carotid artery, and the support leg holds it in place. But once you make the transition into the Hantai Senkaku, it's much less clear which one is actually strangling him, because neither leg is in direct contact with my opponent's carotid artery. In fact, what happens is this becomes the strangle leg. No part of my right leg is in direct contact with his carotid artery. You can clearly see that. There's a space here. It's this thigh which makes contact with the carotid. And only when we lock up like so can you see that the support leg changes. This is now the support leg. This one here becomes the strangle leg, the opposite of what we normally find in triangle attacks. And from here, it creates an enormously tight strangulation. It's a fascinating and highly effective method of strangulation. Those are the basic mechanics of the move. Those are the basic elements to get into the move. Let's strongly emphasize a few basic features. First, you've got to be able to create that north-south element. You have to be able to turn all the way so that your whole body is facing the same direction your training partner is facing. And secondly, you've got to get that shin vertical up to the floor and the feet pointing up to the ceiling. Let's quickly review exactly what I mean by this. Okay, so we use any one of the basic setups that we've been looking at to get into a trap triangle. My opponent intelligently resists a front triangle. If he didn't resist here, if he just stayed in, I'd just go straight to a front triangle. Okay, it'd be easy. Okay, so he's smart. He realizes if he puts his arm in here, that's going to frustrate that. Okay, so we go in, we catch the head. So if he tries to posture up and away, you have control of the head. Now we get that scoop grip. That gets me to 90 degrees. Then we start that action of pendulum with the foot so that I can get my foot down towards the floor. Now both of my legs are pointing forwards. I hold the head, so if he goes to posture up and away, it won't be easy. As he postures up and away from me, look how I'm getting my knee underneath his armpit. Then we apply our leg as a wedge behind him. So everything's locked in close. And I grab my own shin. The closer my foot and my knee, the more successful I'm going to be. As he goes to yank out, it's so difficult to get away. And from here, we lock the figure of 4, and the strangle is impressively strong. This is Hantai Senkaku, or the opposite-sided triangle. I strongly encourage you to work this into your game. It forms an incredibly tight stranglehold, which is, it functions in the same way as a 1-2 punch in boxing. The front triangle is one hand, and the opposite side triangle is the other. As your opponent goes to move away from one, he moves on to the other, and we score. It's an incredibly effective way to deal with the problem of the elbow when we go into lock a front triangle. We're going to come back to that in the next session because it's worth talking about in itself. But those are the basic mechanics of the move and the basic movements that we should be moving towards in order to get into the position to get it to work. Now, we've been looking at this Hantai Senkaku, the opposite-sided triangle, basically a triangle that looks like it's been locked in the wrong direction. It's an incredibly valuable addition to your triangle game, one which I believe is tremendously underutilized in the sport currently. I'm looking to change that. Already, when my students train with each other, we use this every day. In top-level competition, as I said, Gordon Ryan finished Harley Gracie with this, and people were literally like, what even is that? What is it? What kind of triangle is that? Many people don't even see it as a threat until it's too late. I promise you, once you apply it to someone, it's a very, very tight form of strangulation. You'll be very, very impressed. A question is, well, when should we apply it? Why wouldn't I just stick with the front triangle? Why do I have to apply this one? Well, one of the main motivations for us as athletes to use this form of triangulation, there's two big ones. One is elbow position, and the other is the problem of short legs. A lot of people have very short legs, and they find front triangles can be difficult if the opponent's elbow comes forward. I love to use Hantai Senkaku in situations where my opponent is challenging my ability to lock a front triangle through elbow position. Okay, so if I have Mateus here in front of me and we secure any one of the various setup grips that we looked at to go into a triangle, we've got a trap triangle here and we want to progress to a figure of 4. But Mateus is smart and he starts using his elbow to block me at the hip so I can't make an effective move. What he's doing here is he's using elbow position to bring his shoulder forward. And as we saw earlier in this video, if the shoulder is included in the triangle, then I have to as it were, bulldoze my way through resistance and start pulling down on the head and the usual things to finish a triangle. This becomes even more of a problem when my opponent puts his hand in behind the buttocks. Some guys even lock their hands at this point. All of these things are designed to keep the shoulder inside my triangle. This is exactly when the Hantai Senkaku kicks in. Okay, the first thing we do is he wants to posture up and away from me. We're always looking to go through and control posture. That never really changes. Okay, the second thing we're always looking to do is to gain angle. Now, the opposite triangle, the angle is literally the exact opposite of what you would normally do for a front triangle. The name opposite is perfect for this move. Normally, for this side, I would turn in this direction for a front triangle. Here, we're doing the exact opposite. We're coming out in this direction. Okay, my whole thing is to get my body lined up in almost north-south with my training partner. The easiest way to ensure you do that is to take your left foot and touch the mat in this direction. If you can do that, you're lined up and you're ready to go. As my opponent goes to yank out, this is the perfect position now, yanking out, but from here, this is the perfect position to ensure that only his arm and his head are locked inside my triangle. I take his shoulder out of the equation, pulling away, by taking my foot and shin all the way up to his rear deltoid. So the only thing locked inside that triangle is his head and his arm. The shoulder is being taken out by my leg position. If my knee was over here and in contact with his lat muscle, you would see it's very hard for me to lock a full triangle. And Mateus feels no strangulation danger here. Okay? He can easily survive this. So our whole thing is to get our knee underneath his armpit, so that when I go to lock, the shoulder is taken out of the triangle. You've eliminated the shoulder. The single biggest requirement on the part of us, on our part, when we go to apply these strangleholds. Now from here, when we lock the figure of 4, it's an amazingly tight strangulation and a good finish. A natural question to ask is, do I have to wait for my opponent to put his hand behind my buttocks and defend the triangle through elbow position? Absolutely not. Sometimes we just go directly into the Hantai Senkaku. I'll give you a good example of this now. Let's say, for example, we were working here and we got good elbow position on our training partner, and I pushed my training partner's hand in, and for whatever reason I found myself at a slight angle here. He hasn't done anything to hide his arm's just in a regular position, but you see my hips are on the wrong side to hit a conventional front triangle. My hips, if I want to hit a front triangle, would have to go out here in this direction, okay? So I'm on the wrong side. Why not just go directly to a Hantai? Absolutely, you can. I catch and I turn and I spin all the way around the corner as we were doing before. And once again, when we lock up the figure of 4, he tries to move away. And again, the stranglehold is enormously tight. So you don't have to wait for your opponent to defend himself with elbow position. You can just go straight to it. As a general rule, if I'm working for a front triangle and my opponent's left arm is trapped, I want my hips going out to my right. That's how we would attack a conventional front triangle. Okay. So if my hips are out to what appears to be the wrong side, there's nothing to stop us just going directly into the move. Okay. Just that simple turn around the corner gives us exactly what we're looking for. Now, I didn't wait for Mateus to defend the front triangle. I just went directly to the Hantai Senkaku, and you can see the strangle is enormously effective. So, as we go to work with our training partner, look how we stuff the wrist in, and for whatever reason we find ourselves at an awkward angle. It's awkward for the front triangle, but it's literally perfect for the Hantai Senkaku, the opposite triangle. Okay? So as Mateus goes to posture up and pull away from me, this is exactly the time when we could be turning underneath our training partner and going through into this winning position. Because my feet are pointing up to the ceiling, I know I'm in the perfect position. It's almost like we're north-south here. Okay? Now, if my opponent should strongly resist me and go to stand up to his feet, etc., it all means nothing. And you also have tremendous sweeping potential in this position to put people down to the mat and go into a host of follow-up kimuras, strangles from behind, etc., etc. We'll be covering more of that later. But you can see this is a move with tremendous potential. The beauty of the Hantai Senkaku is that it appears to cover up the inherent weaknesses of the front triangle. Everything that makes a front triangle difficult, elbow position, my opponent's shoulder coming forward, angulation difficulties where my hips are on the wrong side to form an effective angle. All of these things make a Hantai Senkaku or opposite triangle easier. So the very things that make life difficult for a front triangle make an opposite triangle easy, and vice versa. You use these two in unison, you're going to finish a lot of people. What's required for it? Just a little bit of flexibility to get your knees to your chest. The flexibility required is not extraordinary. I'm not asking you to do a full split. I'm not asking you to do a full side split. All you need is the ability to bring your knees to your chest and to roll up onto your shoulders. It's not a huge flexibility requirement. Most people with just minimal training can do this kind of thing. I know when you first see this, you might think, well, he's rolling himself up like a pretzel. I can't do that. Well, actually you can. Most people with just minimal training can easily bring their knees to their chest. Sometimes if you're generously built through the stomach, that your own stomach can get in the way, that could potentially be a problem. But of course, you're always in control of the size of your own stomach. That's an easy thing to fix. You can't change the length of your legs, but you can control the width of your stomach. So all we really need in terms of flexibility is this ability to bring our knees into our chest and to bring our feet over our head to the floor. Now that's a very minimal flexibility requirement. As I said, I'm not asking you to do full splits. I'm 52 with a hip replacement. If I can do this, I'm very sure that you guys can with minimal training. And I'm sure most of you could probably do this tomorrow with no warm-up. So once again, we start off, and in any situation where we lock up a trap triangle in our training partner, and for whatever reason we just see the angles wrong and the hand position's wrong or what have you, this is going to make it difficult to go into a basic front triangle. Makes it easy to go into the Hantai Senkaku. We come all the way out to an angle, like so. Okay, again, it's just a matter of my knees coming to my chest. It's just a matter of me inverting up onto my shoulders. It's not a great flexibility requirement. And as a result, we can quickly go through and secure the stranglehold. You will be very impressed once you get there just how much strangulation power this move has. It's a very, very tight form of strangle. Make it part of your game. It's an unbelievably effective way to combine movements with the front triangle. When you combine front triangle and opposite triangle, as I said before, the weaknesses of one get covered by the other. And you use them in unison. It's like having a left-right combination punch. It's hard to get away from, and it's a very, very tight strangle once it's in place. Keep working it. Don't be intimidated by the appearance that it looks like it needs flexibility. It doesn't. It's just basic knees to chest. As I said, it's not advanced flexibility at all. All you need is a flat stomach and an ability to pull yourself up so your knees come up towards your shoulders and your toes go overhead towards the floor. It's not an advanced stretch by any stretch of the imagination. And then from there, you're into your regular triangle positions with your legs. Now I've been pushing the merits of the opposite triangle, Hantai Senkaku. And a big theme of this video is the idea that this is an underutilized move in the sport of jiu-jitsu. If more people knew about it and more people performed it, you'd see a lot more effective activity going on with triangle strangulations in the sport of jiu-jitsu. It's an incredibly effective addition to your arsenal, and it works particularly well in combination with the front triangle, the most common form of triangle in the sport. In addition, it also works extremely well, as we saw earlier in the video, with Ushiro Senkaku, the triangle from the rear. Remember when we talked about category A? Category A was composed of front triangle, opposite triangle, and rear triangle. Whenever you have one of those triangles, you almost always have the other two available, if you just change the angle. In the case of the Hantai Senkaku, the opposite triangle, usually we use it when front triangles get frustrated, we go to Hantai. It's important to understand from the Hantai Senkaku, you can almost always sweep and off-balance your opponent. And when you do, you can shift around the body and go into Ushiro Senkaku, the rear triangle. When you start to operate in these ways, you start to get beautiful combination attacks. Your opponent will avoid one triangle and fall into another. He avoids that, he falls into the third. And you can just play these three triangles against each other, all three in the same category. And it's a nightmare for your opponent to get away from. He just feels like he's scrambling from one stranglehold to another, and the whole time there's a set of legs around his neck and shoulders strangling him. It's a terrifying feeling. Let's look at how we can use the Hantai Senkaku to off-balance and sweep our opponent, and then go directly into Ushiro Senkaku, the rear triangle. So, from a situation where Mateus has been locked up in a trap triangle, just like so, and for whatever reason, we've decided we're going to pitch into the Hantai Senkaku. Okay, it might be because my hips are at an awkward angle, which would make a front triangle difficult. That's a common reason to go into it. As always, we go up and we control our training partner's posture. As always, we go in and we scoop our training partner's leg. Now from here, we make that turn all the way out in front of our training partner like so. And as a result, we can quickly lock up the figure of four. Now, you'll notice that his head is pinched up in my triangle. When Mateus tries to posture up, it's so difficult because of the weight on the back of the head. And it's so easy for me now to take my body and push forwards here. We're not sweeping to the side, we're taking him forward. when Mateus tries to stop by bracing on his hands and putting his weight backwards, it's almost impossible to prevent the knockover. Okay? Now we've put him down. We're in a position now we can go on the attack in other ways. As he goes to recover, I will often use his recovery to come out into the front triangle. And from here, we go into our usual finishes. We scoop inside the leg, we turn the corner, eliminating his shoulder, and there's our strangle for the finish. So that's our first combination attack out of Hantai Sankaku. My opponent comes back after the sweep and gets caught in the original front triangle. Once again, we start off just like so. We've got a trap triangle on our training partner. For whatever reason, we're able now to make a turn and go around the corner and lock up the Hantai Sankaku. I feel for whatever reason we're struggling to finish. He's pushing and resisting, turning, so we use a sweep to put him down. No one likes being swept into a mounted triangle, no one enjoys that. So he comes back up, goes to recover position, we go around the corner and we lock up the front triangle. As always, from in here, we go to control posture, and there's our front triangle for the finish. So that's one excellent example of a combination attack out of Hantai Sankaku. Here's another one which I strongly favor. From any situation where we have a trap triangle and we go into Hantai Sankaku, we make the turn out to the side, we lock up the Hantai Sankaku, and we put our training partner down to his back. Now this time he wises up and he realizes if he turns back in, he's giving up a front triangle. So we use our hands as a base of support initially to hold him, and then we take our hand and we lock underneath our training partner's arm. So I go 1, 2. Yes, you can lock a Kimura at this point, but you don't have to. Okay. Now I plant my foot and I shift my hips, and as a result, we rotate around his body. We gather up his fist and put his knuckles right there on our chest. Now we have Ushiro Sankaku, the triangle from the rear. When he tries to pull away and move away, I just close my two knees over each other and we get a strong strangulation for the finish. Once again, let's go further up the swing test. So we start, as we've been doing all day, with the entry into the trap triangle. From here, we elect, maybe because of an awkward angle or what have you, to initiate the action with Hantai Sankaku. So we control posture, we control angle, and we make the turn around the corner. We apply the Hantai Sankaku. My opponent goes to pull away, and for whatever reason, it's proving to be ineffective. So I turn and place my opponent down. I use my hands on the floor to shift and get a grip. I lock, I plant my foot, I change the angle, and from here, I lock the Ushiro Sankaku, the triangle from the rear. Now as he goes to pull out, move out, etc., it's so difficult and the strangle comes on immediately. I'll just show this from a different angle so we get a look at the Ushiro Sankaku. We've got a training partner here in front of us. For whatever reason, we're able to secure some kind of grip which enables us to lock up the initial trap triangle. Now from here, we go through, we form an immediate angle on our training partner and lock up the figure of 4. We place our training partner down on the mats. From here, I go in and lock. There's our initial grip on our training partner. Look, I plant my foot, I shift my hips and change the angle. And as a result, we can quickly lock up Ushiro Sankaku. We lock his knuckles into our chest. When he goes to twist out, move out, etc., we have our third triangle and we go in and get the finish. So whether our opponent turns into us, in which case we take a front triangle, or whether he stays down on the floor, in which case we take the rear triangle, we've got excellent combination attacks out of this initial Hantai Sankaku. I cannot emphasize enough the value of this incredible form, this incredible variation of the triangle stranglehold. Make it part of your game. It complements the other triangles so well. Category A of the triangles: the front triangle, the opposite triangle, and the rear triangle work incredibly well together in combination. All I need to do is develop the skill of moving around his head and shoulders with my legs, and you can switch between these 3 forms of attack to create devastating combinations that it's so difficult for your opponent to hold off. He can hold off 1, 2, but by the time you get to the 3rd, 4th, or 5th, it's just so difficult. Each one of the strangles is incredibly mechanically strong. Once you learn to play between them, the success rate you find with your leg strangles is going to go up enormously. Now, the general direction of the triangle system which I'm teaching you has 4 essential steps. The first step is this idea of creating a working grip upon our opponent that confers some kind of advantage through grip and enables us to progress to the second stage. The second stage of the triangle system is this idea of creating a one-in, one-out situation. I want to trap one of my opponent's arms inside my legs and force one of my opponent's arms to the outside with my legs. So one arm is in, one arm is out, and his head is caught in the middle. This is done through these what we call the trap triangle, where you trap your opponent's head and one arm between your legs. The third step of the system is the transition, how to manage that transition from a trap triangle to the full figure of 4. Only when you have the figure of 4 do you actually start strangling people. And your ability to succeed with triangles is largely going to come down to your ability to manage that transition from trap triangle to figure 4. Now, when you get to the figure 4, you're going to finish a lot of people. A lot of times, the system just ends right there. However, there's always going to be those people who find a way to resist the strangle. At that point, you've got to go to the fourth and final step of the system, which is to engage in joint locks. Anytime you've got a triangle, you almost always have some kind of joint lock which you can go to employ as a second form of attack and get the finish. Let's look now at the case of Hantai Sankaku, the opposite-sided triangle. Whenever we feel, for whatever reason, the strangle is proving insufficient, we've got to switch to a joint lock. The question is, which one? Well, first, let's investigate why a Hantai Sankaku might fail as a strangle, what went wrong, and secondly, what options do we have? Why a Hantai Sankaku will fail usually comes down to my knee position. Okay, so we have a training partner, and we've managed to secure a working grip on him, and then from here, we went into a trap triangle. We saw our opponent's hand was on a given side. We caught a hold of our training partner's head. We put a hand inside our training partner's legs. And from here, we started an action of turning around, make a strong body. From here, we started an action of turning around our training partner's body like so. Okay. From here, we enter into the Hantai Sankaku. The reason why this strangle is going to work so well is because my right knee is underneath his armpit. So that when I put a wedge in behind my training partner's head and lock up the figure of 4, the stranglehold is immensely tight. Okay, it's a very, very tight and efficient form of strangle. What might go wrong is, make a strong base, from here, if my knee is not underneath his armpit. That's where it should be for the strangle. If my knee is above his armpit and I go to lock the Hantai Sankaku, you can see he's not strangling at all. I can squeeze all day and no strangle's going to happen. So whether or not you successfully strangle your opponent in the Hantai Sankaku always has to do with the position of this knee. That's why we put such a high value on this grip on the head, this grip here on the leg, and then the use of my free leg to create angle that gets my knee underneath Placido's armpit. When he goes to pull away, we're wedged in place, and now we lock the figure of 4. The wedge of my triangle is right behind his head. When he goes to resist my strangle, it's so difficult. This is going to be a perfect strangle because I had perfect knee position. But in a world where perfection doesn't always happen, we may have to work without that perfect strangle in place. If I see my knee is too high and I've locked up here, there's no strangle in this position. That's the bad news. The good news is there's a great arm lock. From here, I'm just going to push away so that my knees go away from my chest, and I'm going to secure my training partner's wrist. Now we're in the perfect position to lock up a Kimura. As always with any Kimura, I want to take his elbow up to the line of his shoulders. I want to place his fist just inside of my knee, and from here we get an enormously tight joint lock substitute. So as my strangle fails, the joint lock takes over. So we start off from a situation where we're in front of our training partner, we go through and we secure our training partner's arm and say, for example, an elbow 2-on-1. That's one good working grip. Now, from the initial grip, we need to go into the 1-in, 1-out situation. So from here, I penetrate with the foot over my training partner's shoulder, and we've got a trap triangle. We have one arm inside my legs, one arm outside my legs. Okay, from here, for whatever reason, we've got an arm over on this side. We catch our training partner's head, we catch our training partner's legs, and from here, it's all about my ability to turn in the same direction that Placido is facing. That will largely be a result of my left leg. If I can get my knee through underneath his armpit, the strangle is on. This is the perfect position for me to go in and lock up the figure of 4. When he goes to resist the strangle, it's well nigh impossible. Okay, it's a very, very easy strangle from here. But if I screw up and my knee fails to go underneath my opponent's shoulder but is instead on top, I will have to lock a basic lock which now has almost zero chance of a successful stranglehold application. Okay. However, there's a joint lock right in front of me, and that joint lock in this case is Kimura. I catch my training partner's wrist, we lock everything in, I bring his left elbow to my left armpit. That ensures that his elbow is up on the shoulder line. I put the hand in the inside of the wrist, and from here you've got a tremendous arm break. In this way, we can fully utilize the overall 4-step system we employ for triangles. You get your working grip. You convert that grip into a trap triangle and create the 1-in, 1-out situation that we're always looking for. Then we manage the transition from the trap triangle to the figure 4 triangle, and we attempt the stranglehold. If your knee position is good, you'll win right there. If your knee position is bad and the strangle is not working, then we go to step 4, which is the ability to employ a joint lock on your opponent. The best and most applicable joint lock in the case of the Hantai Senkaku, or the opposite triangle, I believe is Kimura. It's a very, very simple transition, and it's a devastating lock.